Amazing rescue, kind man saves, screaming mother cat, just 3 seconds before an incredible fate. Sam paused on the roof, a gentle breeze embracing the warmth of the afternoon sun. The rhythmic sound of nails driving through wood was comforting, but it was abruptly cut short by a heart-wrenching wail from somewhere in the distance. His heart twisted as he recognized the despairing cry of a mother cat, sending panic racing through his veins. Memories of his grandmother flooded his mind, her voice echoing lessons he held dear. Stand for those who cannot speak for themselves. The call was crystal clear. He had to act. He hurriedly descended the ladder, his thoughts tumbling together. The junkyard, a forbidden realm managed by the unyielding Mr. Harris, loomed ahead. It was a place of rusted metal and shadows, dangerous, yet somehow filled with echoes of forgotten lives. Sam's pulse quickened, apprehension blending with determination. He had seen the way Mr. Harris treated not just animals, but anyone who dared stand in his way. Navigating through the hazardous debris, Sam's resolve was tempered by a gnawing fear. What if the confrontation with Harris turned ugly? The thought gripped him tightly, constricting the space in his chest. Risking everything for a creature he had never met felt both noble and reckless. Would the townsfolk call him a hero or a fool? What if he lost his family home, a sanctuary built by generations? Sam brushed away the doubt as he inched closer to the source of the cries. Finally, among the twisted metal and debris, he saw her, a frenzied ball of fur, her eyes wide with panic as she pawed at a tangle of wire that wedged her tightly. Breath hitching in his throat, he lunged forward, working quickly, feeling her desperation seeping into him. This moment was more than a simple rescue. It was a lifeline thrown to the voiceless. He reached her just as her cries escalated to a frenzied pitch. The grinding of old machinery jolted him back. He twisted around as a metal shard crashed down, barely missing him. Sam's heart thundered in his ears, adrenaline coursing through him as he gripped the cat, his fingers slipping into the mess of her fur. "What have you done?" a fierce voice rang out, sending icy fingers crawling up his spine. Mr. Harris, a looming figure with fists like rocks, emerged from the shadows, his face twisted in anger. "You think you can waltz in here and rescue what's mine?" The threat hung heavy in the air, the implications swirling. Any word about this could shatter everything Sam held dear. He swallowed hard, grappling with the reality that speaking up for this mother cat could cost him his family's legacy. There was no turning back. The stakes were suffocating, and as fear coiled around him, an unexpected ally moved quietly into the fray. Ms. Thompson, the local teacher known for her big heart, caught the thrum of tension, her eyes alight with resolve as she stood at the periphery. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With allies forming, Sam felt emboldened, yet doubt nagged at every corner of his mind. He felt the weight of a community's eyes upon him, and with Mr. Harris's ready-to-strike stance, the battle lines were drawn. As he stood at this precipice, preparing to speak his truth, an uneasy wave swept through him. Would he crumble under pressure, or find the strength to confront the encroaching darkness? The night settled heavy around him, tension thickening, each heartbeat a reminder of what hung in the balance. Sam opened his mouth to speak, the world falling away as he found the courage to defend those who could not defend themselves. The crowd's murmur transformed, a sound of solidarity swelling behind him, strength blossoming amidst uncertainty, leaving only the unanswered question of what came next. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Sam faced Mr. Harris. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on him, and every muscle in his body seemed poised for a fight. He felt the cat's heartbeat thump frantically against his palm, a shared pulse of fear and hope propelling him forward. Ms. Thompson's presence offered a flicker of reassurance, her steadiness reinforcing his shaky resolve. Yet the stakes were painfully clear. One misstep could cost him everything. "Let her go, Harris," he uttered, his voice tinged with uncertainty, yet steady. The challenge hung in the air, pregnant with the potential for conflict. Would this audacity lead to triumph, or would it unearth the wrath of a man known for his ruthless temperament? Sam's heart raced, drowning out the sound of the world around him. Harris's eyes narrowed, calculating and dangerous like a wolf sizing up the threat. And what if I don't? She's nothing to you, just a stray. His contempt dripped from each word, pulling additional scrutiny from the small audience that had formed. Neighbors, friends, individuals who knew Sam's family and all it stood for. No, she's not just a stray. She has a family, a life, just like mine. Sam pushed back, his voice stronger than he felt. Each word was a step further into the abyss of confrontation, yet each breath he took filled him with a sense of purpose that he hadn't realized was within him. This wasn't merely about the cat anymore. It was about standing up for what was right, regardless of the cost. Ms. Thompson stepped closer, affirming his stance silently. Meanwhile, Harris's face twisted with rage as the realization set in that a boy he deemed weak was challenging him. In that moment, Sam saw him not just as an adversary, but as a reflection of every threat he had faced, the unjust, the cruel, those who would take advantage of others' vulnerabilities. "I'll call the police if you don't let her go," Harris barked, but the words felt thin and empty. Sam sensed the man's cards were beginning to slip from his grasp. The crowd's murmurs became louder, their solidarity shifting the dynamic. "Do it," Sam replied, fear now tempered by determination. "They'll hear about how you neglect animals and the way you bully us." A ripple of support surged through the group, binding them together in a collective stand against the oppressive atmosphere Harris had fostered. The challenge ignited something within Sam, a fire kindling in his chest with every heartbeat. This was his moment, a pivot point where courage unfurled itself like a banner. He looked around at those he had once considered irrelevant, now names etched in his mind, voices that bolstered his spirit. "Whatever happens, we'll be right here," Ms. Thompson quietly assured him, her faith in his ability unwavering, her presence lending him a newfound weight. An unsettling silence enveloped them as Harris grappled with his options. The outdated machinery creaked ominously above them, echoing the tension that electrified the air. Sam swallowed the knot of fear that had formed in his throat. The more he pushed back, the clearer it became that getting involved was essential, not merely an option. Just as the standoff reached a boiling point, Harris's expression lurched into one of disbelief, the fight momentarily draining from him. And in that fraction of a second, something crucial inside Sam shifted, a realization that true courage wasn't simply about bravado. It existed in the vulnerability of standing up for what truly mattered, regardless of the consequences. Then, with a quiet firmness, Mr. Harris scoffed, "You think that's how you run a game? You don't know anything." He turned, the crumbling facade of authority cracking under the pressure of unity that Sam had catalyzed. But the encounter was far from over. As Harris retreated back into the shadows, simmering fury still radiating, Sam remained on edge, suddenly aware that this confrontation had only scratched the surface of an impending war. With his heart racing and adrenaline pumping through his veins, Sam could sense that this moment was just one of many in a burgeoning fight, not just for the cat, but for something deeper within himself that had been waiting for this spark. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he felt the undeniable pull of a greater purpose unfurling before him, ready to be faced. With this knowledge igniting a potent mix of fear and determination, Sam whispered to himself, "There's no turning back now." The challenge ahead lay heavy with uncertainty, beckoning him further into uncharted territory where anticipation gripped his insides. Ready or not, the next move awaited. The following day brought with it an uneasy calm, the aftermath of yesterday's confrontation palpable in the air. Although he had faced Harris and felt a sense of triumph in his stance, uncertainty clung to Sam like a shadow. He awoke early, the sunlight filtering through his bedroom window, illuminating the corners and crevices that felt far less inviting than usual. Sam's mind replayed the event over and over, each moment dissected and analyzed. He found himself questioning everything. Would he have the strength to face Harris again? Was this burgeoning sense of purpose merely a fleeting spark, or did it hold the potential for something more significant? Each thought bounced around his mind like a pinball, unyielding in its intensity. Driven to reevaluate his motivations, he sat at his desk, pen poised over paper, though it remained blank. Gathering his thoughts felt like an insurmountable challenge. He turned his attention to the events of the previous day and the people who had gathered around him, those who had rooted for him, who had seen him in a new light. It shocked him how satisfying it was to feel that sense of belonging, yet it amplified the pressure he felt. He sighed, pressing the pen against his forehead before finally writing the words, "What do I stand for?" This simple question resonated, making the indeterminacy of yesterday's outcome even more pressing. It encapsulated the duality of his situation, the fight for the cat emblematic of a deeper battle within himself. As the hours passed, Sam decided to step outside. The weight of the day's sun contrasted starkly with the lingering shadows of doubt that cloaked his thoughts. He wandered into the familiar neighborhood park, usually a refuge for him. Today, however, it felt different. The vibrant hues seemed muted, every laughter muted and distant, his unease folding over the joyous noise like a heavy blanket. He approached Miss Thompson, who was feeding a group of birds. Seeing him, she smiled, her presence a comforting anchor amidst his internal storm. "Good morning, Sam," she greeted cheerfully. "Miss Thompson, do you ever feel like everything you believe is at stake?" he asked, the question escaping his lips before he could reconsider. Her brows knitted together, thoughtful. "All the time. It's part of what makes standing firm worth it. You base your reactions on your values. When you know who you are, everything else falls into place." Her words had the desired effect. Sam felt a realization start to crystallize within him. He had just begun to comprehend his values, but the prospect of losing Harris's battle pushed him toward clarity. Every experience he had gone through, the bullying, the challenges, had shaped him, and now they were calling him to take a firm stand. In a moment of silent reflection, he noticed the small, vibrant flowers blooming even though storms had battered the park recently. They thrived amidst the challenge. It struck him as a parallel to his situation. Suddenly, he felt compelled to articulate what he believed in. Brainstorming his thoughts onto paper felt like a cathartic release. Sam spent time writing about liberty, respect, and advocating for those who couldn't defend themselves. His emerging convictions became clearer. It was as if he shed layers of confusion, revealing his true self beneath. Reading his thoughts allowed hope to take root. The more he envisioned his values, the easier it became to recognize his purpose. He would rally those who'd been oppressed, the voiceless, including the little cat that sparked this journey. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, a sense of anticipation coiled within him. He now understood that stepping into the light of his newfound beliefs would require action, facing the darkness head-on once more. However, he felt equipped to embrace that journey. Then came the sinking realization that Harris had not retreated. He remained a tangible threat. With clarity of purpose came the question: how could he effectively confront the man who embodied all the injustices he despised? With a determined breath, Sam whispered, "This is just the beginning." And the new mission began to unfold in his mind, a daring idea sparking like a flame. A plan began to take shape, one that could bring justice to the beleaguered, both furry and human alike. His heart pounded, invigorated by the thought of standing up not just for himself, but for all those who needed a voice. As he traced his finger over the page filled with ideas, determination swelled within him like a tide washing over everything in its path. It was time to act, but the intricacies of his plan remained unformed. He could sense that the confrontation ahead would require more than just courage. It demanded strategy, allies, and perhaps unexpected twists. Each decision weighed heavily as he prepared to step deeper into the fray, and just as soon as he felt ready, a gust of wind rustled the page before him, and he looked up, startling at the sense of impending disruption. Something, or someone, was about to change everything. The question loomed now: what role would he play when the critical moment finally arrived? The next morning arrived with an electric buzz of adrenaline coursing through Sam's veins. He had barely slept, his mind entangled in threads of plans and strategies that shifted like quicksand beneath him. The confrontation with Harris loomed closer, and each tick of the clock echoed the urgency of his purpose. Instead of retreating into the safety of his thoughts, he decided to seize the day. He stormed into his living room, the sun streaming through the windows as he prepared to mobilize his ideas into real actions. Seeking clarity amidst the chaos, he turned on his laptop, intending to gather resources on advocacy for animal welfare and social justice. He stumbled upon various online platforms, communities that championed the rights of animals, forums discussing personal rights within schools, and groups that provided shelter for those in desperate need. Each page he scrolled through deepened his sense of belonging in a larger narrative. He was no longer just a bystander. He had tapped into an unyielding current pushing against oppression. As he read, an idea ignited within him. What if he didn't just confront Harris directly? What if he could rally support and create an organized response? He felt a compelling urgency to brainstorm. Sam printed flyers advocating for the humane treatment of animals, emphasizing the courage it would take to speak up against cruelty. The thought made his heart race with newfound determination. His phone chimed unexpectedly, causing him to recoil. It was a message from Mia, a confident classmate whom he had admired from afar. "Hey, I heard about what happened with Harris," it read. "I think we should talk. Can I come over?" He was caught off guard, but saw it as an opportunity. Mia was known for her advocacy work. Perhaps she could offer insights or even lend her voice to the cause he was building. Minutes later, she arrived at his door, her demeanor one of steadfast determination. "So, what's your plan?" she asked, diving straight into the conversation. The direct approach caught Sam off guard, yet he felt an innate sense of trust in her straightforwardness. "I want to take a stand," he began, nerves crawling up his spine. "But I don't want to do it alone. I think we can create a channel for others who feel the same way." He laid his printed materials on the table, watching her expression shift from curiosity to intrigue. Mia traced her finger over the flyers, her expression thoughtful. "This is good, Sam. But you know that Harris won't back down easily. You need to prepare for pushback." Her words pierced through his momentary excitement, whipping back remnants of doubt. "What if he retaliates? What if I make things worse?" Mia met his gaze unwaveringly. "You have to be ready for that. Your values need to guide this approach, but belief alone won't protect you. You need allies, everyone you can gather around this cause. I could talk to a few people in our club." An idea clicked. Sam remembered the students who rallied with him when he confronted Harris. Perhaps there was a network already in place, one that simply needed the revival of a shared purpose. Her willingness to help sparked something deeper in him. "Will you help me reach out to them?" he asked, his voice gaining steadiness. "Maybe we can have a meeting, share stories, and create a plan together." Mia's smile reflected determination. "Absolutely. But it's essential to prepare for any fallout from Harris and his friends. You might even want to consider documenting everything to keep records of any harassment." As they began discussing strategies, a distinct sense of clarity washed over Sam, shoving the lingering fear aside. The initial resolve to act had transformed into something tangible, a blueprint for a movement anchored in shared stories. They spent hours brainstorming, drawing connections, creating a network of advocates far broader than Sam initially imagined. Each conversation kept extending Sam's understanding of his own motivations. It wasn't only about facing Harris. It was about building a support system to tackle the injustices that lay in shadows, often unseen. The sun hung low in the sky when they finally stood up, both filled with purpose. Sam felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but instead of burdening him, it ignited his passion. Now fueled by a collective vision, the confrontation with Harris transformed into both a battle and a promise of hope for himself and the voiceless he had vowed to protect. As they parted ways, Sam was filled with resolve, but a gnawing worry remained about how Harris would react. Every step forward felt laden with potential consequences. Could they really rally enough support? And just before the uncertainty took hold, he caught a glimpse of the stray cat in the park, a silent promise that echoed back to him amidst the growing shadows. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself. "Tomorrow we start." The unshakable reality of the confrontation edged closer, and Sam pondered just how immense the repercussions would be when he finally faced Harris head-on. Would he emerge victorious? Or would the struggle lay bare the cost of his resolve? As dawn broke the next day, Sam felt physically heavy with the anticipation of the confrontation ahead. A muted fear fluttered in his chest, but each heartbeat echoed a mantra of defiance that he could no longer ignore. The profound sense of purpose he'd discovered with Mia ignited a fire deep within him. Today was about action, and action required unwavering courage. He spent the morning assembling his materials, meticulously reviewing flyers, and fine-tuning his pitch. Sam recognized the importance of presenting himself confidently. After all, they were fighting not just for the stray cat he had seen, but for all those marginalized voices silenced by fear. He studied his reflection in the mirror, adjusting his shirt, smoothing back his hair, willing himself into a mindset of determination. Arriving at school, he noted the thrum of adolescent life buzzing around him. Students gathered, laughing, trading banter, yet beneath the surface, Sam felt an electric tension. Today was different. He had a purpose: to rally support. He spotted Mia near the entrance, her presence a stabilizing anchor amidst the storm. "Ready?" she asked, her confident demeanor reinforcing his resolve. Sam nodded, the fear lingering, but no longer controlling his thoughts. Together, they approached a small group of students known for their involvement in animal rights advocacy. Sam opened his mouth, but hesitated as he met their eyes. Were they willing to join his fight? "Guys," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I want to talk about something important. We need to take a stand against Harris and support those affected by his cruelty." The words spilled out, raw and genuine. The reaction stirred a mix of responses. Some nodded in agreement, sharing murmurs of their own experiences. Others exchanged skeptical looks. Sam felt the weight of their scrutiny, but pressed on. "We need to unite and show him that his actions will not go unchallenged. I believe if we confront him together, we can create real change." Mia stepped up, her presence adding credibility to his words. "Sam has been gathering stories and resources on this," she reiterated, her confidence infectious. "We can be a force of change." As they shared stories, conversations flourished, fostering an environment where vulnerability met determination. Even the skeptics began revealing their thoughts, adding layers to their collective experience. This exchange provided clarity. It wasn't only about responding to Harris but also about empowering one another. Yet amidst this burgeoning camaraderie, a piercing thought gnawed at Sam. What if they couldn't sustain this momentum? Encouragement surrounded him, yet doubt crept in with glimmers of despair. What if Harris retaliated in an unexpected way? Later, they organized their first informal meeting in a quiet corner of the library, where each participant shared their encounters with abuse or neglect. Sam listened intently, absorbing their stories. Understanding flowed between them, and he realized how profoundly connected they were by their shared resolve to change their circumstances. He felt a flicker of hope turning into something more resilient. Riding the emotional high of that first gathering, Sam stayed late to finalize their plans. Impatience surged within him. There was a growing urgency to confront Harris. The thought of doing nothing gnawed at him. That evening, as he scrolled through social media, he noticed a post by one of his peers detailing a recent incident where Harris had bullied a student for speaking out. The realization of how widespread Harris's influence was hit Sam like a wave. This wasn't solely about issues with animals. It was about fostering a culture of fear that extended into every corner of their lives. The gravity of the moment hung densely in the air as the stakes rose. Sam understood that he needed to act swiftly and decisively. He thought of all the people who had felt similarly oppressed, their voices muffled by intimidation, and an iron determination gripped his heart. It was time to confront Harris, not just for himself but for every student silenced by tyranny. Tomorrow, they would take their stand, and Sam sensed that the convergence of their collective efforts could either build a foundation for change or shatter his attempts at asserting his voice. Questions raced through his mind. How would Harris react when confronted with their evidence? Would he double down, further intimidating them, or would he falter? A storm loomed on the horizon, and as he stared into the night, Sam knew this was it. The time had come to face the very fears he had harbored for so long. Would the confrontation herald a new chapter of courage, or would it unveil a hostility he couldn't withstand? Tomorrow the battle would begin, and Sam felt every fiber of his being vibrate with the anticipation of what awaited him. As the sun broke through the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and gold, Sam could feel every breath become heavier with the burden of expectations. Today wasn't just another school day. It was the day they had planned to confront Harris, and an undercurrent of urgency pulsed beneath the surface of his thoughts. The vision of every exchanged story, every nod of agreement, and every flicker of courage from his peers supported him like an invisible shield. He arrived early, needing moments alone to mentally prepare. The school hallways were still quiet, echoing with the faint sound of his footsteps. Each stride toward the library felt monumental, the weight of what he was about to do twisting knots in his stomach. But he had made a promise to himself. He wouldn't back down. Soothing thoughts rushed in, his friends counting on him, the support of Mia anchoring him. As he entered the library, he spotted familiar faces gathered around a table, their expressions a blend of determination and apprehension. They had all come to share the burden of possible repercussions. This collective anxiety reminded him of the very enemy they were confronting. Harris thrived on fear. "Hey, everyone," Sam began, gratitude welling up as he acknowledged the solidarity around him. "Today's the day. We have everything prepared, and I believe this is about more than just confronting a bully. It's about standing up for what's right." A wave of nods spread across the table, punctuated by murmurs of encouragement from Mia, bolstering his resolve. But buried within him lurked doubt. What if he stumbled, faltered when it mattered most? He reminded himself that vulnerability was a part of their collective strength, and showing that hesitance could invoke empathy. As they calculated their approach, the group's strength surfaced in their strategies and insights. Emphasizing the importance of evidence, a compilation of witness statements and documented incidents, they planned not just to confront, but to expose the toxic atmosphere that Harris had cultivated. Sam realized that he was no longer just an advocate, he was now a leader. With each tactical discussion, something shifted inside him. He was discovering an ability to inspire others. This newfound role propelled him into a realm he had never anticipated. Let's make sure to emphasize how his actions are not just about individual incidents. They reflect a deeper issue, Sam articulated, speaking with an intensity that surprised him. Yet, a nagging thought lingered. Was he really up for this challenge? Paranoia clawed at him as he considered potential retaliation from Harris. What would happen if this confrontation spiraled out of control? Regardless, the desire for change overpowered fear. Even if he fell, he wouldn't be alone. As the clock ticked painfully toward their confrontation time, they agreed on a unified message. Each member would hold a part of the narrative, amplifying their collective voice. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying, the essence of the fight vibrating through him. When it was time to leave the sanctuary of the library, Sam took a deep breath, inhaling the musty scent of books tinged with fresh resolve. This moment would define him. He could feel the gravity of it pressing against his chest. As they marched toward Harris's domain, he caught a glimpse of Mia, who offered a reassuring smile that filled him with a surprising sense of strength. What would they face once they confronted Harris? The other side of this journey felt deeply uncertain. The moment of truth was upon him, and Sam steeled his mind against whatever lay ahead. He understood that today's actions would either forge a path toward empowerment or expose an even harsher side of reality. As they reached the threshold of Harris's world, a sudden unease washed over Sam. It was time to execute their plan. Holding his head high, he pushed open the door, ready to face the storm waiting on the other side. Would he emerge a victor, or only find deeper doubts? The uncertainty gripped him as the confrontation loomed, a pivotal moment that held the breath of change hostage, waiting for his decision. The air inside the classroom felt stifling, charged with an electric tension. As Sam stepped over the threshold, the sound of chatter fell silent, all eyes swiveling toward him and his companions. Whatever confidence had surged moments earlier faltered under Harris's piercing gaze, a challenge in itself that seemed to slice through the room. "Look who it is, the little heroes," Harris sneered, seated at his usual place with a bravado that belied the insecurity Sam saw lurking beneath the surface. The way he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, was both threatening and oddly predictable. It was as if he was waiting for them to flinch, craving the power that came with intimidation. Sam felt an internal clash. The urge to retreat raced against the determination to stand firm. He could sense the fear in the group behind him, but they were here for a reason. Summoning his voice, he stepped forward, consciously gripping the edges of the table for support. This isn't just about you and us, Harris. This is about how your actions affect everyone here. The room held its breath, unsure of how the showdown would unfold. Sam's mind raced as he spoke, piecing together the statements they had diligently collected, the hopes they were putting on the line. We're not going to be silent anymore. Your behavior is unacceptable, and it ends now. Harris's expression twisted into a mocking grin, amusement flitting across his features like shadows. And what exactly are you going to do about it? Whine a little louder? The laughter of followers echoed around him, but it sounded distant, as if muffled by the growing resolve swelling inside Sam. Infuriating as the ridicule was, it ignited something deeper. A confidence he hadn't fully realized was there. We have evidence, he declared, his tone dripping with authority that felt foreign yet exhilarating. The snickers faded into an unsettling quiet as Sam shared the incident reports, detailing the instances of bullying that spanned over months. Clarity emerged from a jumble of emotions, transforming them into something actionable. As he spoke, he could see the apprehension etched on the faces of those still loyal to Harris. The tide was starting to turn. Mia's voice broke through the silence, steady and clear. You think your actions have no consequences? Look around. You might intimidate some, but others are rising up against you. With every word, the air crackled with tension, and Sam felt the energy shift. Harris's sneer deepened into anger. You think this little circus will stop me? Sam's stomach tightened at the explicit challenge, but he pressed on. No, it won't. Not today. We're showing everyone the truth. You'll see that your reign of fear is breaking. With each statement, he felt heavier with the weight of responsibility. Any slip could unravel the very threads of empowerment they were fighting to weave. A quick glance around the room showed others starting to nod along with his words, an unconscious collective rallying. Sam could hardly process this transformation, the shift in the dynamics around him, but he could no longer ignore it. But then the challenge came swiftly. One of Harris's supporters stepped forward, a smirk interlacing his features. As he delivered a dismissive line filled with venom, Sam felt the confrontation veering off course. Would the surge of courage that had protected him falter under this renewed attack? Just as that apprehension crept in, a familiar warmth bloomed in his chest, ignited by Mia standing resolutely at his side, unwavering. It was as if her quiet strength stitched together the seams of his doubt. He glanced at her, gathering strength from her presence, and suddenly, he knew they weren't alone in this battle. This wasn't just about confronting Harris. It was about reshaping their own identities in the face of antagonism. The power they held together did not just aim to diminish a bully. It sought to build something brighter, a community where fear had no place. As Harris readied a venomous retort, Sam's heart raced, bracing for the onslaught that would test not only his resolve, but also the newfound courage he didn't know he could possess. The moment hung in the air, charged with potential and peril. Would he be able to harness this pivotal moment to showcase a brave new narrative? Would this confrontation embolden them or break them apart? The answer washed over him like cold water as he met Harris's eyes, unwavering, finally understanding the difference between fear and courage. What was surging within him was no longer doubt. It felt like empowerment. But then again, what would be the cost? Would they face retribution, or would they finally breach the silence encasing their school? The next few moments could reshape everything. The stakes had never felt higher. The tension in the room crackled like a live wire, each heartbeat a drum echoing loudly against the walls. Sam faced Harris, the weight of what was at stake coiling tightly in his stomach. The initial surge of confidence he had felt began to tremble beneath the weight of uncertainty. It was nearly palpable, this moment bursting with consequence. Do you genuinely believe anyone cares about your little presentation? Harris spat, the disdain in his voice aimed like a weapon meant to cut deep. There was an instinctive wariness hidden behind that bravado. Sam tried to ignore the pang of doubt creeping in. It clicked within him. This wasn't just about Harris. It was about finding his voice. The voice he had suppressed for far too long. Sam forced himself to step up, an involuntary tightening in his throat as he crafted his next words with deliberate care. They do care, Harris. More than you think. This is about our safety, our right to be free from this fear. You do not control us anymore. Harris paused, the shift in atmosphere unmistakable and tangible. The murmurs returned, flowing like a river gathering strength, igniting an energy within the spectators. Sam turned to Mia, who smiled softly, a subtle reassurance laced in her expression. He felt her unwavering presence beside him, grounding him. Together they were stronger. Together, they could unravel the tightly wound cords of intimidation. The whir of adrenaline fueled Sam's conviction. You may think you're untouchable, but this time we are stronger than your threats. Each word landed like a hammer on an anvil, resonating within the silence of the crowd. As he spoke, he saw subtle nods, fleeting yet significant gestures of agreement and support among fellow classmates. It was a heartening reflection. They were starting to ignite their voices, embers of dissent blooming into a blazing fire. Harris's jaw clenched. The restrained fury beneath the surface was clear. He slammed his hands down on the table, shaking the pens and notebooks. You're in over your head, Sam. You're nothing without the approval of the others. You want power? You'll have to earn it, kid. There it was. A challenge and an opportunity. Sam could choose vulnerability and retreat or rise above, confront what had held him back for so long. With each pulse of conviction coursing through him, he recognized something significant. He had been waiting for someone to lead, not realizing that he could be that very person. Earn it? He echoed, his voice unwavering. That's the problem with your thinking, Harris. You believe power comes from fear. But it doesn't. It comes from clarity, from standing up for what's right, no matter the risks. The confidence surged within him, igniting passion. I will not back down, not for you and certainly not for your followers. At that moment, Sam felt the shift inside him consolidate into a profound realization. This wasn't merely about confronting Harris. It was about confronting the fear that had long held him captive. He wasn't just acting for himself anymore. He was establishing his commitment to the future. As he spoke, eyes darted to his classmates, registering the subtle metamorphosis from timid observers to potential allies. The lines of power were indistinct, shifting like shadows, and Sam could feel the pull of something potent beginning to weave through the narrative. But just as savoring this newfound power felt satisfying, there was the stark realization of what could come next. Harris's anger radiated, fueling a smoldering contempt that began to threaten everything Sam had initiated. Would the opponent yield? Or would he unleash his wrath in a last-ditch effort to suppress the tide of change? What Sam had ignited wasn't simply a defense against bullying. It was self-discovery, a quest into the heart of leadership forged through adversity. He couldn't turn back now, not when faced with the challenge that seemed to loom ominously ahead. What was his next move? Would he be able to rally those around him even with the unexpected wrath approaching? Or would the very foundation he had begun to build splinter under the weight of Harris's fury? The reality of the moment pressed firmly, intertwining confrontation with self-discovery, fraught with uncertainty and fearful anticipation. The air hung thick with anticipation, the crowd now a sea of expectant faces. Sam stood rigid, a tight coil of determination and fear. He could feel the weight of Harris's contempt radiating through the room, a palpable force that threatened to unravel the moment. Sam's mind raced, calculating strategies, projecting potential reactions, and edging toward instinctive responses he had never known he possessed. Harris straightened, his expression a calculated mask. You think you're brave, Sam? But bravery without strategy is just foolishness. The thin veneer of calm contradicted the fury flickering behind his eyes, making it clear that this confrontation was far from over. In that instant, Sam recognized a flicker of resolve within himself. He had embraced vulnerability, establishing his voice. Now he needed to bolster that voice with strategy and a plan. Mia's gentle nudge brought him back to the moment. Her whisper was barely audible over the murmurs, but resonated deeply within him. Stay focused. Remember why you're doing this. It was as if she shared a preview of the potential that lay dormant inside him, waiting for the right moment to erupt. Foolishness? Sam replied, and for a brief second a thought gripped him. Was he reckless for allowing emotion to guide him? Yet instinct shouted back, urging him to draw strength from his passion. No, Harris. It's called courage. The courage to stand for what is right, even in the face of intimidation. What do you know of true power? As he locked eyes with his antagonist, he felt a surge of strength, not unlike the spark that sparked creation from chaos. Footsteps shuffled in the crowd, a sign of shifting allegiances. Sam felt his heart race. Each nod of approval strengthened his resolve. He wasn't alone. This realization ignited a stratagem that didn't merely rely on the support of classmates, but rather on his ability to articulate a vision. A vision that transcended fear. Real leaders earn respect, not through fear but through understanding, he continued, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. What happens when fear fades? You have nothing left to maintain your grip. I challenge you to engage with us, with respect and openness, rather than this toxic cycle of intimidation. In that moment, Sam felt an unexpected transformation within himself. The fear that once mingled in his gut mutated into clarity. He observed the medley of reactions among his peers, noticing how his words were igniting the spark of resolve within them too. This wasn't just about Harris, it was about him steering a narrative far beyond the classroom walls, fostering dialogue and courage from within himself and others. Harris's eyes now blazed, barely containing the fury that simmered beneath. You're playing with fire, Sam. I suggest you step back before you get burned. Sam inhaled deeply, feeling the urge to retreat, but he refused to let the threat cloud his resolve. This was his moment. His responsibility was to push forward, even as it felt precarious. Then let the flames come, Harris. For every threat, there is a fire that can forge iron into something mighty, and in my case, that fire will encourage others to stand alongside me. As the tension escalated, Sam realized the confrontation was not merely between him and Harris. It was a decisive moment of personal growth. He faced his own vulnerability and emerged transformed, not just as a speaker, but as an advocate, unearthing qualities within that he had yet to explore. Yet as he drew strength from these revelations, he couldn't shake the impending sense of retaliation. Harris wasn't one to take such challenges lightly, and Sam braced himself for the repercussions. He understood that obstacles were bound to appear, but with every ounce of his spirit he resolved to face them head-on. Your move, Harris, he declared, knowing full well the battle had just begun. In that moment, he opened the door to a new chapter in his life, filled with possibilities but also uncertainty. What would the aftermath bring? As darkness loomed, obscured by the shadows cast from the confrontation, Sam prepared for a storm. Would he emerge still standing, ushering in a new era of courage among his peers, or would fear take root once again, binding him to his past? With the tumult brewing, he braced for a test of his newfound leadership, on the brink of something daring and profound. Sam stood on the edge of a new chapter, the air heavy with anticipation and uncharted potential. The confrontation with Mr. Harris had been a pivotal moment, a crucible that forged his resolve in the fires of fear and uncertainty. In the aftermath, as the dust settled from the clash, he felt an unprecedented sense of clarity wash over him. The victory had not simply been about confronting a bully. It had become a transformative journey leading to self-discovery. The tide had shifted in their school, ripples of empowerment stirring within his peers. Students began to come forward, sharing their stories, standing tall against the oppressive atmosphere that had thrived for too long. Sam watched in awe as the collective energy grew, voices rising to form a chorus of strength against Harris's reign. It felt surreal. Each former whispers of doubt and uncertainty now manifested as an unyielding force for change. Days turned into weeks, and as the community began to rally, Sam took on an unexpected role, a leader. The testimony of his classmates fueled a movement that extended beyond the walls of their school. They organized campaigns to foster dialogue, workshops to raise awareness about bullying, and rallies highlighting the importance of compassion. The cat that had once sparked a journey of courage morphed into a symbol, of hope, of resilience, and of a fight no longer bound to silence. One afternoon, as he prepared for another presentation to their school board, he felt a profound sense of capability enveloping him. Standing before a gathering of teachers, parents, and students, Sam articulated the need for systemic changes to address the culture of fear perpetuated by bullies like Harris. Change starts with us, not just for ourselves, but for those who feel their voices are stifled, he declared, every word saturated with the conviction that had blossomed inside him. The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing the transformation he had witnessed in the community. He spotted familiar faces in the crowd, Mia, Ms. Thompson, and even classmates who had once remained silent. They nodded in agreement, standing together in a shared commitment to redefine their environment. Finally, he felt the threads of his growth solidify into something tangible, the realization that courage breeds more courage, creating an unstoppable movement. As the momentum continued, the board responded positively. Policies were drafted in alignment with the voices of students, shifting from mere resistance to actual prevention of bullying behaviors. Sam proved that standing up for what was right bore fruit, not just for him but for all. He had traversed from being terrorized to becoming an advocate, embodying the change he had yearned to see. Amidst all this, the confrontation with Harris was far from over. The opponent had retreated into shadows, but Sam knew that the threat of intimidation remained, ripple effects of fear still lurking among the students. Yet, armed with a newfound confidence, he felt steadfast against any fallout that might surface. Facing Harris again, he thought, would not be an act of recklessness. It would be a chapter in a continued fight, one he could now navigate with wisdom and strategy. In the weeks that followed, Sam felt an unshakable pride swell within him, the kind that stemmed not just from victory, but from this profound individual metamorphosis. No longer anchored by doubt, he had earned recognition among his peers and became a beacon of resilience. He secured a mentorship position with Ms. Thompson, where he would share his journey with younger students, teaching them the power of their voices and the importance of standing up for one another. As he gazed out over the familiar playground, now filled with laughter instead of tension, Sam understood. He had conquered not just the local bully, but the shadows of fear that had haunted him for years. He proved to himself that true strength lies in vulnerability, the courage to speak, to rally, and to embrace one's truth. This was his moment, a realization that transcended the trials of bullying, rooted in authenticity and empathy. Sam was no longer defined by fear, but rather by the collective strength he had fostered. With a firm heart, he stepped forward, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that he would always rise, together with those who joined him in the light. Now, without delay, it's your turn to champion the change. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every interaction paves the way for more powerful stories. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sam's journey and this conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and be inspired to take action. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.